Very, very few people know this about me. And it's not the subject that you talk about to new people. Say, oh, hi, I'm Abby, I've been sexually abused. Always going to work with injuries, black eyes, broken fingers, not a good look. My drug dealer at that time said, right, I'm not going to give you any more unless you sleep with me. Lost everything. And I slept on a bench. I just didn't want to live anymore. My new self-harm was the drink and the drugs. And I do feel like it's almost a slow suicide. It's fine. These people are going to look after me, right? And they weren't. They were there to completely destroy me, and they did. Thousands of messages, set her alight. She deserves to die. You don't deserve to have children. We're going to come find you. We're going to kill you. Pictures of women tied up, being killed, being sent to me. When we find you, this is what we're going to do. 100% she would have killed him. And there was a massive knife in the airing cupboard.
Do you know if she's moved on to someone else?
I don't know, but I do know that her previous 2 husbands died. I'm just going to leave that there.
Just a quick one. I want to thank our main sponsors, Bauer Security. They're a UK-based security firm that cover the entertainment, industrial, corporate and construction industries. I'm going to leave the links to their Instagram and their website below in the description so you can contact them direct. You can also find my own social media platforms down there too. And if you've got this far and you haven't yet liked and subscribed to the channel, can I ask that you do so? It takes 2 seconds, costs nothing, and it helps us improve the experience for the guests and for those at home watching. Thanks again. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoy this one. Firstly, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you coming on.
Me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So you're an online yoga instructor.
Yep.
You're a businesswoman.
Yep.
You've had quite the life. You were on First Dates, the well-known dating program, which led to a horrendous campaign of trolling. Even celebrities took to Twitter to lambast you for one reason or another.
I was trending on Twitter, Liam, not in a good way at all.
Nah. I wonder how many people watching this will remember First Dates, because...
Yeah, I mean, it was filmed in 2015, I think, so quite a while ago. And I mean, sometimes it gets replayed and then I get like a host of new messages that come through. I don't know whether this is going to spark a new...
It might bring it all up, but I think the light that you're going to shed on the editing especially will certainly play in your favour, and there'll be no funny business with the editing of this. This is just going to be your moment, your stage, and we can talk about your modelling career, being on front covers of magazines. Like, there's a lot to talk about, so we'll go right back.
Okay.
And I know there was abuse from a very young age, from when you were 4. So I know that there's not a great deal you're going to be able to talk about before we go straight into
those kind of days,
to the horrible stuff. But just tell me a little bit about how it all began. Where are you from?
Okay, so I'm from Essex. I've lived in Benfleet pretty much all my life. So my parents were like very typical of that, of the 80s, very kind of hands-off parents. You know, you just kind of disappeared out on your bike, just come back before it gets dark, you know. My dad was a lot older than my mum, so nearly 20 years older, and he didn't have me till in his late 40s. So he had quite an old-fashioned approach. And my dad had a rough upbringing, and I think it's important to stress that because I don't want you to think badly of my parents from what I'm about to say. You know, he had a hard upbringing, and the story I remember him telling me was that he was chased around the house by his mother with an axe, and he left home at a very early age. But he was a very clever man. He qualified as a doctor very early on, and met my mum. But he was very hands-off dad. Like, he had no idea when my birthday was and things like that, and he wouldn't ever make small talk with me. There was never like, oh, I love you, how are you? Or it was a very hands-off relationship with my dad. And I think my mum was always torn between my dad and her kids because obviously she wanted to be that loving mum, but he used to get jealous of that and he didn't like that. And my brother and I were seen as a bit of a nuisance. So as a result of that, I spent a lot of time in my room. Yeah, so we were just told to kind of stay out the way, you know. And that's really my childhood memories, is just being in my room, like looking out the window, like trying to get the courage to kind of go, right, I'm going to go outside and just try and make some friends and things like that. And I remember even at a very, very young age, just desperate to go to school, thinking, well, I can actually like talk to other kids and stuff and it'll be something for me, you know. And I did. And when I was 4, went to school, went to private school, completely wasted on me, by the way. But yeah, went to private school, and my mum at this point decided to go back to work. So she went up to London to work, and like my brother and I were pretty much just left to our own devices at that point. And my granddad would pick us up from school a lot. And that's when the abuse started. So when I was 4, he'd pick us up. I don't know if he always picked my brother up. I don't know. Sometimes I think he'd go back with a friend. But it'd be like the same old routine. So we'd have dinner, we'd play cards, and then he'd touch me up.
Was he your mum's dad or your dad's dad?
He was my mum's dad. So my dad's family, most of them had passed away, and I'd never met them. So yeah, it was on my mum's side. So yeah, so that kind of happened probably 3 or 4 times a week throughout my whole life until I was 11. Yeah.
Do you remember the first time that he put his hands on you?
Do you know, I don't, because I was so young. And I think also you blot it out as well. I think if your brain doesn't like what's going on, it has this way of just going, we don't want to keep reliving this. Let's just kind of put that in a box right at the back, you know. And I'd always sometimes wonder, I wonder if memories will come back out slowly over time. But it's a weird thing, because when you're that young, you have no concept of how wrong that is, what's going on. And he used to just say to me, you know, you can never, ever tell anyone about this. You know, no one's ever going to believe you. I'll go to prison and everyone will hate you. And you believe that. You believe that with your whole heart. You know, when you're told that, you're like, right, okay, this is just something I've got to keep to myself. And like as a young child, you don't fight it. And I think that was probably the hardest thing for me to overcome, you know, that I let it happen, therefore I'm responsible. And it took me a long time, probably till I was in my 20s, 30s, to let go of that kind of self-abuse, you know, where I hated myself. Like, why didn't I fight it? Why didn't I tell someone? And I just allowed it to happen.
A lot of people do freeze in moments of unnatural behaviour because you know it's wrong.
Well, yeah, because, you know, he's told me to keep it secret. I know it's wrong. And I remember, like, you know, I struggled at school. I mean, I was an awkward kid. I didn't have many friends. And I don't know whether it was to do with the way I was brought up or my natural disposition. You know, I don't want to blame everything on what's happened to me, because that I've got to be accountable for who I am. But, yeah, I was an awkward kid. And I remember once, like, going into school, and I was just, like, talking to this little girl on the bench in the playground, and I just said, have you got a granddad? She went, yeah. I went, does he do things to you that you don't like? And she was like, no, I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. And I just thought, am I different? Is there something different that's going on here? And it used to, like, that thought used to plague me. And I thought, I don't know, there must have been a bit in me that thought I need to tell someone this is wrong, what's going on. But to find the courage when you're, you know, you're so young, that it's really hard. And I think it resulted in me basically self-harming from when I was about 7.
Self-harming is through the roof at the moment at schools, and this is a very good conversation to have, because people never know what's happening to their kids when they're not under their supervision. Yeah. And when you say your granddad was touching you up, like, in what sense, and did it escalate?
He never raped me, so I put that out there. But he used to just, like, put his hands down my knickers and things like that, or he'd make me touch him. He'd say, I'll give you 50p, just, like, put your hands down my trousers. And I was like, no, I don't want to. But he would just be so, I just felt like I couldn't say no, you know. I was a nervous little girl as it was, you know, as I'm a nervous person now. I carry that nervous anxiety, and I was never going to be that child that went, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to tell so-and-so about this. And I think also back in the 80s, people weren't talking about that. It wasn't a conversation people wanted to talk about. I think it's only the last decade, really, that people feel comfortable about talking about it. And I'm sure there are thousands of adults now, my age, that have had something like that happen to them that have never, ever told anyone. And that's kind of one of the reasons I'm putting myself in this uncomfortable position now, because I'm not comfortable talking about it. But I'm just hoping that it will give people just that little bit of courage, maybe just to go, do you know what? When I was little, this happened, and just release that off their chest, because you need to, even if you think it's not even if you think it's not bothering you or you've got over it, you know, the amount of times I said, oh, I'm over it, I'm over it, I'm over it. I'm obviously not, because just talking about it now is uncomfortable. It's giving me anxiety. So it does rule a part of who I am, for sure.
Do you know if you've done the same to your mum?
Well, now that's a question. I don't know, and I'll never know. I'll never know that because my mum's not here anymore. But it caused a lot of problems later on because, I mean, we've got a lot to get through till we get to that point. But I did confront her about it eventually when I was in my 20s. I didn't tell anyone until I was in my 20s. And I couldn't believe that she didn't know. Like, you're handing me over to someone who's doing this, you know, more or less daily. And I'd cry, I don't want to go to Granddad's, I don't want to go to Granddad's. And I was forced to go anyway. And I thought, you know, as a mother now, and I think of my children, I would bloody know. I would bloody know if something was going on, you know? And I don't know whether it's that hands-off parenting back then or just burying your head in the sand. You know, like I refuse to believe that's happened. You know, it happened to me. I can't face that right now. So, yeah, I don't know. I still don't know. That I have my suspicions.
And where was your dad between the ages of 4 and 11 when this was going on?
Well, he was a doctor. He was working a lot. And he was very hands-off, so that I have got no memories of me playing with my dad or being taken to the park. My parents never took me to the park. Like, the first time I went to the park, I was probably about 13, and I went with my friends. I was like, oh my God. Like, I was just so excited. I went down a slide and stuff like that, and I was just like, this is amazing. And everyone was just like, well, I don't get your excitement, you know. But yeah, so I don't think he wasn't emotionally tuned into me at all, so he wouldn't have picked up on anything. And I think he probably just would have thought, she's just got to get on with it. You know, this is a man that, like, my mum said to me once, she said, oh God, guess what? She went, Dad's bought you a TV. And I was like, what? It's not my birthday, it's not Christmas. He's like, yeah, he's bought you a TV, like, for your bedroom. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, I couldn't believe it. And then I realised he'd bought me this TV, so I spent more time in my bedroom. So then, like, when I had my meals, it was to eat it in my bedroom, like to keep me away from my mum so he could have my mum to himself. And that was what that TV was for.
It's bizarre why people with that mindset that want to be the centre of attention have children, because as soon as you have children, they're the centre of attention. Any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got a brother, but we don't talk. So it's a little bit of a sore point.
What about when you were kids? When the abuse was taking place, like, was he present?
I started at such a young age. You know, the memories are weird, and I can't really place my brother in it at all. I don't know. I think he was very clever about how he's kept us very separate, me and my brother. You know, making sure that this secret stayed a secret. Yeah, I mean, he did it in a way that, look, he got away with it because he died. He died before it came out, you know, and I didn't tell anyone, and he knew what he was doing.
It's a shame that people like your granddad get credited with intelligence, but to an extent, they are very clever because they know exactly when to do it and where to do it and how to play everybody in the whole family. So between 4 and 11, 4, 5, 6 is probably going to be very blurry. And then we'll move off from this subject, but I'm just curious as to what age do you distinctively remember this is really, really happening and I don't like it?
Well, I think the closer I got to being 11 years old, the more I was starting, you know, I was just starting to go through puberty, my body's changing, and I think, you know, alarm bells were starting to ring, but I just didn't want to admit what was happening, and I did feel just like, I felt responsible because I thought, I've let this happen. How can I tell anyone? Because he hasn't held me down. I've just got used to the abuse, so you just accept it. You know, you're not fighting them off. So in my head, I was responsible for this. So then how can I now tell people that this has happened? Because I've let it happen. And I think that's the hardest thing. And I think it's only from reading and educating myself now as an adult woman that I understand, like, what had happened. But I think the point was when I was about 15, when I was at school. And I think we were learning something at school, and I think sex abuse came up. And I remember thinking about it. I was thinking, it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, oh, fuck, that is what happened to me. I've been sexually abused, not just like a one-off time. We're talking like my whole childhood pretty much. And it just hit me. It really, really hit me. And I didn't know what to do with that because now I had a label for it. And I think that it can be dangerous labelling things because once you've got that label, it becomes almost like a self-fulfilled prophecy. Okay, so now I'm a sex abuse victim. So I'm going to, do I act like a sex abuse victim because that's what I am? And I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with that at all. I don't want to victimise myself at all because then you're making excuses for how you are and what's going on in your life, the choices you're making, you know? But anyway, getting back to when I was about 15, I had this kind of realisation and then I started self-harming again. And I didn't really know why I was doing it, to be honest.
When you say again, when did you first start self-harming?
Probably, my earliest memory is probably when I was about 7 at school. And I think it was just a cry for attention. I didn't know at the time why I was doing it. I had no idea why I was doing it. I just knew I wanted attention. I wanted someone to listen to me. Someone, I didn't have any friends. I wanted someone to like me. I thought, I had this obsession with wanting to break my leg because I thought if I had a cast on my leg, people will notice me and I can talk and I can say what I've got to say. And I remember trying to break my own leg and I had my clarinet. I went to a posh school. I had this clarinet and I was just bashing my leg with this clarinet until it was black. My leg was so trying to break it. And obviously I didn't break my leg, but I just had all these bruises down. And, I remember the teachers seeing it and they didn't even question it back then. I think now they would. They'd be like, what's happened to what has gone on there? And it was just weird things like that. And I didn't know why I was doing it at the time, but it's clearer to me now. It was a cry for help. It was attention. I was looking for attention to say my piece, to try and make a friend, to try and fit in, to feel comfortable again.
I think people self-harm. It's predominantly a young thing. I think you grow out of it, don't you?
Yeah, for sure.
You're either doing it to inflict so much pain that it takes away the present pain, or you're doing it because you are crying out for help. There's two angles to it.
Exactly. And I can only speak about it from my point of view at the time. But I think for a lot of people, they don't really know why they're doing it at the time. And I certainly didn't. I knew I wanted to do it and it felt good doing it. And it was like a release. So when I was 15, I cut all my arms up with my razor. And I think I'm almost embarrassed to talk about that because it just sounds like such an attention-seeking thing to do, And if my kids had done anything like this or do anything like this, I'd be absolutely mortified that they would do something like that to themselves.
But you were desperate for attention because your dad was distant.
Yeah, I guess it was. And it was just this realisation that, I haven't been brought up in a normal way here. I am this sex abuse victim that I'd labelled myself as suddenly. And I didn't know what to do with this information. I started reliving what had happened to me when I was a kid, realising how wrong it was. Like, why didn't I fight? I was just so angry with myself that I didn't fight him off. And I was angry that he fucking died. Like, he died before I told anyone. I'm finally getting a little bit older and stronger and I'm ready for this battle and he's dead. I can't do anything about that.
And how old were you when he died?
11. He died of a heart attack.
Okay, so do you remember how that felt?
I remember just feeling relieved and it kind of warped my idea of what grieving was because I'd see all these people crying around me, went to the funeral and I was like, well, I don't feel sad. Right, so he's dead. It's brilliant. And I didn't really understand what grieving was. I just thought, he's dead, that's it. And I was just numb, just completely numb. And I just thought, well, at least that's the end of that, and I just kind of tried to move on with my life from there.
And how old was he when he died?
Maybe 65.
Thank God he died when he did.
I mean, I'd rather have been alive and been made accountable for what he's done, and to have had that moment of going, what you did to me was wrong. I've never had that chance to say that. I've never been able to look at him and go, you fucked up my whole childhood. And that was taken away from me the moment he died.
Bit of a dark question, but so with that in mind, I'm thinking, thank God he died when he did, and you'd rather have him been alive. So if you could turn back time, would you have had the abuse go on for a little bit longer just so you could have
100%.
made him accountable?
I mean, the damage was done. So yeah, 100%. 100%.
Oh, kudos to you.
Yeah.
Fair play. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have gone through it another 3 or 4 years if I could have looked him in the eye and just kind of faced faced the person that had ruined my childhood, basically, and affected me as an adult now,
And did you go to the funeral?
Yeah, I went to the funeral. No one knew. And everyone said, oh, why is she not crying? She was so close to her granddad.
And was he like one of them charming types?
It's hard because, I was a kid, so I only saw him through kids' eyes. So I didn't see him like in a social atmosphere. I was always kept, I was like on my own with him. So I never saw that kind of side of him. I only ever saw, he'd make me dinner and we'd play cards and he'd be as nice as he could be. He never hit me or anything like that, or verbally abusive or anything like that. And obviously this is the first time I've shared this story, I'd like to add. Very, very few people know this about me.
Why have you decided to share it now?
It's really just to release it. And I think, when you gave me the opportunity of coming on here and we spoke a little bit about, my life, etc., and I thought I can either shy away from this, because I wasn't going to do it, was I? I wasn't going to do it. I can either shy away from this and just carry on holding all this in, or I can use this as an opportunity and put myself in that vulnerable position where I'm given the chance to be brave, so I can step forward. And I just hope if there's other people out there that have been sexually abused that are listening to this, that they can turn around to their wives or their husbands and go, this is what happened to me when I was younger. This is why I feel like this about this, this and this. It could solve so many things. It could solve broken friendships, marriages. It could help patch up people's broken relationships with relatives.
I think the thing
or destroy them, or I don't know.
Well, no, when they say the truth sets you free, like it absolutely does. It relieves you of the shackles, and there's a lot of people walking around with real heavy baggage because they've never done anything like what you're doing.
No, and I think the reason a lot of people don't like sharing things like this, no one wants to talk about sex abuse. It's not a conversation that comes up. Oh, yeah, I sexually abused my granddad. It's not a conversation that just flows, with whatever you're talking about. And also, it feels like, to me, it's always felt selfish sharing that. Like, I don't want people carrying that pain. Like, once I've shared that, I've downloaded that on someone and they've got to then process what I've told them. And it's not nice. My story isn't a nice story to have to go away and think about, and there's family members that are going to be absolutely horrified.
It is good for relationships, though, because people will have a much better understanding of you. And
This is my story. That's it.
Yeah.
This is my story, and I've hidden it. I've hidden it for too long, and I can only tell my story. I can only be truthful to what has happened to me. And if it hurts people and it upsets people, I'm ready to accept that.
It's just another conversation that you can have,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that will be dealt with nice and easy. This is the toughest conversation you're going to probably have.
Yeah.
So that's your granddad's airtime done.
Yeah, give him that's enough.
That's him done. He's had more than enough airtime.
He might kind of crop up later on in my 20s.
Yeah, that's fine. But all the horrible sordid details, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. So from 11 to 15, because you started self-harming again at 15, do you remember because that's when you go into secondary school?
Oh, yeah, there's some interesting stories right at the beginning of that as well.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Grandad died at 11. I'm at secondary school. An anxious, awkward kid. This is a kid that had a list of worries in her pocket from the age of 6, all the things I was worried about. And I used to carry this list around with me, like all the way up until I left secondary school, really awkward. I had acne, frizzy hair, like a vest top, totally flat-chested, and just seriously awkward, not many friends. And I remember at my house, let me just explain about my house a little bit first, because this is quite an important part. Like, there's a basement in my house, and it's the house I live in now, and the house I grew up in. And it was a snooker room, okay? So there's a big snooker table down there. When I was little, I used to play snooker quite a lot. I didn't play snooker. I picked up the cue and hit a few balls, but I used to do it all the time when I was bored. And later on in my life, my dad kind of used it. My dad used to do like private vasectomies down there. So when I was in my room as a kid, I remember looking out the window and I'd just see men coming out the house, like walking like a cowboy. But anyway, that's another story. That room with the basement with the snooker table, I went to go down there once. We were left on our own a lot, me and my brother. And the door was locked, right? So why has he locked the door? There's nothing more interesting to a kid than a locked door in your own house. Like, what the fuck is down there if he's locked that door? Me and my brother had already found a gun in the bedroom that we used to play with. We used to have a shotgun. My brother used to load it with the bullets and go, pretend to die and I'm going to shoot you. And I think back at that and I just think how, like, dangerous that was. But anyway, back to the basement. So, yeah, he'd locked this basement up. And I was just desperate to find the key for it. And it was my sole mission. So I was about 11 at this point. And I used to watch a lot of films with my brother. It was the only way I could spend time with him. I used to have to watch these horrible films. I'll get back to that in a minute. Sorry, I'm digressing. But yeah, I went into the basement, found the key, went down there. And I was like, oh, he's growing some plants. That's okay. Why is he hiding that for me? My mum and dad loved a bit of gardening. They always had tomato plants and stuff. I thought, that's so weird. Why have they locked the door? Why don't they want me down? What do they think I'm going to do to these plants? Anyway, I locked all the doors back up and it just really bothered me for a long time. Watching these films with my brother, always about drugs and death. And I remember seeing this marijuana leaf, right, on these films. I was only young, I was really innocent. And I was like, that leaf is what I've seen in the basement. And it all started clicking together. I was like, I think my dad's growing marijuana. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be popular. Like, I'm going to finally make some friends. And I remember I went down there and I thought it was the leaves that everyone smoked. And I remember pulling all the leaves off these plants. At least I tried to dry them out, right? And then I tried to sell them.
In leaf format.
In leaf format. I was 11, right? I was a grammar school girl. I'd gone to an all-girls school, I've got no tits, frizzy hair, acne, and I'm trying to sell these.
Bag of weed.
And then I was like, okay, that's not what people smoke, right? I learned the hard way. And then I was like, okay, carried on watching films. My brother was learning that because you didn't have the internet so much then. It was around, but you didn't go on it, did you? Like when you were a kid, So I couldn't just Google it.
How many plants were in the basement?
Probably about 20. So not crazy amount, but a decent amount,
Was your dad selling it or smoking it?
Who knows? I think he was selling it. He used to get himself into money problems all the time. I mean,
doctor's salary pays well.
Yeah, my dad, he died with a lot of secrets. I don't really know what my dad's life was like. I think it was very interesting and I wish I had a bit more time with him now. I'm older.
Yeah.
To have found out those stories because he was an interesting man. He lived on the edge. He was, was a risk taker. But anyway, soon discovered what I needed to sell and found these buds. And then I broke into the science labs at school and weighed it all out and sold it. And how the fuck I didn't get caught, I have got no idea. This is an all-girls school where all the kids in there are being prepped to be lawyers, doctors, go to Oxford and Cambridge. And then my locker absolutely stinks, stuffed full of my dad's weed. But yeah, I think that in a strange way, it gave me a focus and it was exciting. And I was like, I was doing this thing and no, who's going to expect me? I was 11 but looked like I was 8. And that was an interesting point in my life really. But I did stop and thank God I didn't get my dad caught. Can you imagine? Like doctor's daughter selling weed in her school.
Yeah, that would have made the papers.
Yeah, it would have been bad. My dad would have been banged up and that would have been on my shoulders and I'd still be carrying that today. So.
And that would have been your drug dealing career over.
I was hardly a badass, but it was just like, at that point in my life, I was like, I can't get told off for this because my dad's growing it. It just felt like a bit of a, like fingers up to my parents after my shit childhood. It felt like, you can't ever go at me for this because you're growing it.
So then what happened when you reach 15 and start self-harming again?
I don't know. History is what it is, isn't it? But yeah, I started cutting my wrists up and I remember the teachers saw once And they were like, they called me into the room and they're like, you know, what is that? What is that on your wrist? Why are you doing that to yourself? We're going to tell your parents. And I was like, no, don't tell them. Like, telling my parents was the worst thing. I was scared of my parents. My parents they were harsh. They were strict, you know. You'd get a good old clout. You know, there was no sympathy or empathy or anything like that. And I was like, what am I going to say to them? Why I'm doing this, you know? And they rung them up and they told them, and I had to go and face the music. And they were like, you need to go to a nut house. You know, what the fuck is wrong with you? And just the abuse that I got for doing this. And I knew it was coming. And I could sit there and go, oh, that was terrible. They should have been nicer to me about it. To be honest, it was the best thing they did because it stopped me in my tracks.
What, immediate tough love?
It did. It did, because I was scared to do it again because I didn't want the fallout with my mum and dad. You know, I wanted to because I was feeling this pain and I knew that would help. But yeah, the way they looked at me when I'd done it, like like how pathetic I was, and it was a horrible way to be treated, but it stopped me.
See, this is
Controversial, but
well, it's extremely interesting because nowadays, if that happens because of social media
Yeah.
and all the awareness, if your child was cutting their wrists or their arms or doing it in places that aren't visible, like the tops of the legs, which they do as well, and I think most people's immediate response now is, "Are you okay? What's bothering you?" Are you fueling that person's?
I mean, that is a burning question, and I think it depends on the individual. I mean, you're never going to get it right, are you, how you approach someone who's self-harming, because you're never going to really understand why. You know, I never said why I was doing it at that point. I kept my secrets in, but I wasn't ready to. I wasn't ready to talk about it at that point. But yeah, it did stop me, and that's a good thing, because where would that have gone? Where would I have stopped that? You know, I wasn't ever trying to kill myself. I want to stress that at that point. I wasn't ever trying to kill myself. It was just that, you know, I'm damaged goods. I almost wanted to look how I felt inside. It was a representation of what I was feeling inside, that turmoil, that emotional mess inside. I could then have a way of showing how I felt on my body, you know?
So do you think when you revisited the self-harm, was that for attention or was that to take away the pain that was present?
Yeah, probably both. Because there was, like you said, there was that release when I was doing it for the pain. And it was that every time I was feeling like I was struggling, I wanted to do it. So there must have been that link there. But it is also a cry for help. Of course it is. I was doing it in a place that was quite obvious, you know, it wasn't hidden.
Are the scars still visible?
Not really, no. No, I mean, you know, it was just a razor. It was never like a full-on, I want to cut my arteries.
Still?
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost, I could say it's almost a bit embarrassing about talking about it because I'm almost a bit ashamed that I did that, you know, but it is part of my story and that's it.
Half of these conversations are for people watching it to try and make sense of their own situation because you've come through the other end.
That's right.
And I think, well, I know self-harm is, you know, it's so much more popular now than it was when we were at school because we're similar age.
Yeah, but I think also, don't forget, self-harm might look like someone cutting their wrists up, but it's also alcohol and drugs. That is self-harm. And it depends what path you choose, isn't it? So, you know, maybe I could have been an alcoholic at 15 instead, but instead I cut my arms up.
Eating, not eating, over-exercising.
Exactly,
It's all self-harm.
It's all self-harm. It's all self-harm. So you can't categorise cutting yourself up to being any different to an eating disorder, to binge drinking and to doing drugs. You know?
It's good that you've said that, you know, one form of self-harm is no different to any other. If you're drinking to oblivion,
Yeah.
like if you're judging somebody for cutting their arms and you're drinking to oblivion, it's
Yeah.
like you're in the same arena.
Exactly. Exactly.
100%.
That. Yeah, and I don't think perhaps that connection is spoken about enough.
No, I'm glad you did, because that's, I mean,
Yes.
it's 100% true as
Got
well.
me here, isn't it, Liam?
This is why you're here. This is why you're here. So, did you leave school at 15 or did you go on further education?
I went to, I keep saying it, I went to grammar school, an all-girls school.
Did you go to a grammar school, Abby?
I did, Liam.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's fucking awful. I was surrounded by really clever people. All these kids were really clever. I was not the sharpest tool in the shed. You know, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I've got my areas of expertise and the rest don't ask me about, okay, because I don't know the answer. And these people were all very academic and I wasn't. I liked gymnastics and I liked painting, right? My dad's a doctor and I like gymnastics and painting. Can you imagine?
What about making people laugh? Because now we've just broke the ice with a giggle. It's probably a good time to say that your online persona, your online yoga coaching, you include humour as well. Like you are a comedian also.
Well,
So did you like making people laugh when you were younger?
perhaps not intentionally. Like, I've not realised I'm funny. I think people have just found me funny. I'm like, oh, that makes people laugh. And I've made a little connection, that's, to make someone smile and laugh is just an amazing thing, isn't it?
It's nice, yeah.
Yeah. And I think I spent a long time trying to be this confident person that had loads of friends. And as soon as I accepted that I'm not this confident person and I'm not like massively popular and I've only have a small group of friends, and I was able to accept my weird quirkiness and then make humour out of that, I'm much more comfortable in my own skin. I've just kind of laid out my flaws, my insecurities on the table, because once you've done that, no one can attack you because you're like, I know I'm that, I'm that. Now I'm going to take the piss out myself. So what are you going to do about it? And it kind of takes all their weapons away. So they're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you've already said that about yourself, And I've had my fair share of abuse. So
we're going to come to that.
I
Subconsciously, I've always done what you just described there. I've always been the first to highlight my flaws. It's like,
100%. Let's keep the expectations low.
Now where are you going from there?
Yeah.
I'm acutely aware I'm bald as a coot. Like next.
You?
Yeah, honestly.
That's natural.
Look closely, you can tell. Oh, wow. I know. I'm just grateful the aircon's not too forceful in here. It goes everywhere.
I'm like a sweaty, nervous wreck, but it's fine. Yeah.
You're doing tremendously.
Good.
So between, say, 15 and 21, you leave school.
Yeah, so then I went to uni after that. So I did my A-levels, just about scraped some grades together, went to uni, and I was like, well, I just want to paint, I want to draw. Loved that. That was an outlet for me. It was something I was good at, something I was proud of that I could do. And that was like one thing that I was confident with myself, because I had a ton of insecurities, loads. And when you're a teenager, those insecurities, you don't know how to handle those and work those. But one thing I knew I could do was draw. So went to art uni, thought, brilliant, fresh start. I'm going to make some friends. This is where it's going to happen. This is going to be the time that I'm going to be popular and confident, and I'm going to be the person I want to be. Yeah, and I'm going to draw, and everyone's going to think I'm amazing. It's going to be brilliant. And I just basically fucked it up. So the first year I did quite well. They're like, oh, you're a really good artist. We can see that you've got some talent here and skill. I tried to make some friends. But when I say try, I had to really try because I just never fitted in. Like, I wasn't the same as other people. Like, what I was talking about wasn't the same as what other people were talking about. I had this weird awkwardness, this weird energy that people didn't feel comfortable around. And I just kind of withdraw myself, basically. I'd withdraw myself. But then, at this point, I'm 18, so I'm drinking. And I got a job in the pub right next to my uni. And I was working there a lot. And I was drinking more and more. And I was like, this is good. This is an outlet. And I was starting to hang around with a lot older people. I was, 19, 20 years old at this point. And the people I'm hanging around with are men in their mid-30s, which isn't really right, is it? But strangely felt more comfortable with those people than I did people my own age. I just felt like, okay, they're not judging me because these aren't another load of teenagers or people in their 20s that I'm having to compare myself to. So it's a sense of freedom in that sense.
I'd imagine mentally you was far more advanced than most people your age because you had to grow up quick.
Yeah, in some ways, Liam, in some ways, I could say, yeah, I was mature because I'd gone through this, this and this. But in many ways, I was extremely immature.
Oh, really?
Oh, God, yeah.
Compared to people your own age?
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it was just typical of anyone of that age. But yeah, no, I think I was quite immature in many ways. But anyway, yeah. So working in this pub, I ended up leaving the halls, couldn't get on with anyone there, and I lived above the pub. And it was in a room above this pub, and it was just a mattress on the floor. I had all my stuff basically in a black bag, right? Got more and more shifts at the pub, doing less and less at uni. They chucked me out. And I just stayed at this pub. Now, they had a pool table at this pub, and people would come in like during the day, and they were like, oh, do you want a game of pool? And I hadn't really played pool up until this point. I was like, oh, go on then. And I played pool, and I was like, I'm actually really good at pool. because I'd been brought up with a snooker table in the basement that I'd been messing about with since I was 3 years old. And I was really good at pool. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, I had no idea at this point that I could play a game of pool. So they'd be like, okay, do you want to play for a little bit of money? And I was like, okay. And I'd lose and I'd lose and I'd lose on purpose. And I'd be like, double or nothing, double or nothing, double or nothing. And then I'd just win. And I paid my rent like that for years.
Hustling.
I did. You know, that weird little skill that I got from when I was a kid suddenly was paying my rent in my 20s. A really weird thing. And no one expected it. You know, no one expected this little barmaid, it looked about 12 years old, to be beating them at pool. But then they were like, okay, she's good. Like, we're going to get her on the pool team, right? And I was like on a male pool team with men in their 30s. It's just so weird, isn't it? It's just, when I think back to how odd that is and how, I don't know, kind of gives me the creeps a little bit.
Does it gross you out that people of that age were interested in someone so young? Because a 30-year-old man has got nothing in common with an 18-year-old girl.
No.
Nothing.
I mean, no one took advantage of me in that way, you know, and I am an adult, so I have to be accountable for what I was doing with my life at that point. It's no one else's fault. I was making these choices, you know. But I was nervous, as I've said before, I'm a nervous person, and I used to get really nervous playing pool, like as a match with people watching. I'm the only girl on this male team. And I remember someone just going, have a little bit of Coke, have a little bit of Coke, and they'd put it on the table, and I'd never touched anything like that. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I feel really confident. This is the confidence I've been waiting for. This is what I've wanted to feel like this since I can remember, this confidence. And it changed everything, because at that point, when I had that line, I didn't stop. It wasn't just one line. You know, a month on, I can't cope without it. And it was people giving it to me. So I wasn't buying it at this point. I didn't have enough money to buy it. People would just give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me.
Was it the older men giving you the Coke?
Yep. Yeah. And then I remember my drug dealer at that time said, right, I'm not going to give you any more unless you sleep with me. And I was just like, there's no way I'm doing that. Absolutely no way. And he's like, well, I'm not letting you have any more. And it was then that I thought, this is shady. What I'm doing here, this is not the path I really should be going down. But I was already fucked at this point. You know, I was drinking throughout the day. You know, I was cleaning the pub as well. So I worked in the pub, I cleaned the pub, and I slept above the pub. And in the morning when I had to clean the pub, I was looking on the top of the toilets to try and scrape together anything that I could to snort up my nose. God knows what it was, probably, you know, anything, dust, you know, just looking, trying to find some.
So it got a proper grip on you?
Oh, big time. Yeah, big time. You know, and it's a long time ago now, and I remember this group that I was hanging around with, these older people, you know, they loved the fact that I worked in the pub, and they would always give them free pints and stuff like that. And they took advantage of that. And I remember one night I was in my room and they were like, oh, you've got the keys to the pub downstairs. Go and get a bottle of whiskey. Go and nick a bottle of whiskey. And I was like, okay, go on then. I will do that. And I had the keys and I nicked this bottle of whiskey, brought it up. And I was like, so proud of myself that I'd done it. But I didn't know that there was cameras and the landlord knew exactly what I'd done. And the next day I was kicked out of that pub and I had all my possessions in a black bag.
Lost your job and your home.
Lost everything. And I slept on a bench it was only 2 nights, but it was an incredibly hard 2 nights.
2 long nights.
2 long nights and then I realised who my friends were. It was no one.
And how long did that stint last in that pub?
About a year or so. It was a miserable place. You know, there were heroin addicts living above that pub. I was a young woman on my own living in that pub, and I used to sleep with my back against the door to stop people coming into my room. I was too scared to go to the toilet, leave my room, and I wouldn't leave my room.
And for as long as you were living there, were you drinking and using?
Yes. Yeah, the whole time. And I didn't want to go home. That was my problem. So this was what it was all about. You know, I didn't know what to do. Everyone else at uni was going home to their loving families and sharing what they'd done. I didn't have that. You know, at this point, my mum and dad were going through hell and back. They'd been made bankrupt. You know, that's their story. I didn't feel safe going back home. My dad was volatile. You know, he was angry. I was carrying this weight of what had happened to me as a kid, and I knew it was bubbling up at this point for me to confront them with what had happened, because I wanted to know whether my mum knew. That was burning a hole in my head, and I couldn't go back home until I'd confronted that, you know. And I had that time where I was homeless for a couple of nights with all my stuff in a black bag, and just I've never ever felt as depressed as I had then. You know, and I'm not a depressive. I might be anxious and I might be nervous, but I'm not a depressive person. But, you know, and all the self-harming I'd done before, it was never to kill myself. You know, like I said, it was more a cry out for attention, to talk to someone. But at that point, I just wanted it. I just didn't want to live anymore. And I remember just walking down the road, like in the middle of the road, just waiting for a car to hit me. It was like pitch black. There was, you know, I had no one. I had not a soul that I could talk to. I couldn't talk to my mum and dad. I didn't have a friend in the world. These people that I'd made friends with weren't my friends, you know? They'd ply me with drugs, and then as soon as I wouldn't sleep with anyone, it was like, fuck off then. You're no use to us. And now I'd got kicked out of the pub and they weren't getting free pints and all of this. You know, I was on my own. And eventually I did stay with a friend for a little while. And then my best friend from school, she rang me up and she went, I'm coming to get you. And she picked me up and she took me to Sheffield, and I got clean. I just totally came off everything. And I'm so thankful for her for doing that.
Was that rehab?
No, I didn't go to rehab or anything like that.
But you got out of town?
I got out. I had to get out of where I was, yeah. It had to be a completely fresh environment. And she had her head screwed on, you know. She had her life together. And she just kind of got me and was like, right, let's get you out of here. And I remember ringing my mum and saying, I've got to tell you something. And I told her about the abuse that happened finally.
And how old were you now?
Heading to 22.
Was telling your mum what happened part of that sobriety journey?
Yeah, because if I didn't do that, I knew that it was, you know, like I said before about self-harming, you know, my new self-harm was the drink and the drugs. And I do feel like it's almost a slow suicide. It's like you don't feel ready to kill yourself, but you don't love yourself, because you wouldn't do that to yourself. You wouldn't like fill your body with alcohol and drugs. If you truly loved yourself, you wouldn't do that. You know, and I hated myself. I can see that now. I couldn't see it at the time, but it was all to do with this abuse. Why did I let it happen to me, etc. And the only way I could start overcoming that was by confronting my mum, which was like my biggest fear at that point. And I remember telling her, and I was like, you know, Granddad did this to me. Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? She went, of course I didn't know. She went, oh, it happens to loads of people. Don't worry about it. And that was the answer I got. And I love my mum to the world and back. You know, she's the most incredible human being. But that was a shitty response.
Yeah, that's a shocker.
That was a shocker.
Do you think that was your mum's way of also blocking it out? Do you reckon that was her defence? It was my mum's
way. My mum was an extremely powerful woman, a very confident woman. She had this real way, like she'd walk into a room and everyone would just be like, wow, Bev's here. You know, she had an incredible presence and it was just her way. And I don't think inside she probably didn't mean to come across that harsh. It probably killed her, me telling her that, but it was her way of trying to stop me victimising myself, you know, a bit like the self-harm thing. What have you done? What are you doing that for? You know, kind of snap me out of it. And it worked then, but this time it didn't.
Did she believe you, do you think?
Oh, she believed me. She didn't even question it. So, which kind of puts alarm bells. And then but, you know, I'm older now. I'm maturer at this point.
And I suppose back then you didn't think to ask her if he'd done the same to her.
No, and you don't want to know the answer when you're a kid. You don't want to know that answer, that your mum's gone through something like that. But at this point, I think I was mature enough to really understand that perhaps this had damaged my mum so much to the point that she'd buried it so deep that she could not admit it to herself, let alone anyone else, that this had happened, to the point that she's then leaving her kids with a paedophile on a daily basis. You know, so deeply buried that it didn't happen in her world, even though it did. You know, and I think that is why talking about it like this could help. I hope it helps just one person just kind of come out with it and really dig deep, because you bury something like that, it's going to cause damage, like permanent damage. You can't bury secrets like that. You have to let it out at some point.
And taking a secret like that to the grave,
Yeah.
you're giving yourself a prison sentence, psychological jail.
Exactly, psychological jail. Yeah, and to be honest, that's where I feel like I've been for a long time.
So I know you didn't like the response you got from your mum when you told her about the abuse, but how did it feel to come clean? Did it feel like you was coming clean?
Yeah, it was a weight off my shoulders for sure. And I said, I couldn't tell my dad. I just said to my mum, tell Dad. You know, that was just the relationship we had. I'd accepted that me and my dad were a bit like that. I was really disappointed with the response. I wanted a warm response at this point. I needed my mum, you know. But I'd said it. I'd done my bit. I felt like I'd got it off my chest, and I had to accept the hand that was dealt at that point, you know. I then went back home after that. Once I told her, I thought, right, I've told her, I'm going to go back home. It wasn't a particularly like friendly home environment at this point. Mum and Dad were arguing all the time. But I got myself a job.
And you stopped drinking and taking drugs?
Yeah, I'd like to say I had. I mean, if the opportunity arose, I'd do it. But I wasn't like, I've got to do this. I'm not doing it at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know. Initially, when I was doing something like that, I'd get a buzz and I'd feel confident. But now, I'd do something like that and I'd just be riddled with anxiety, self-loathing. It wasn't doing what it used to do.
Do you think the drugs weren't doing the same job because you weren't masking the same thing anymore?
Do you know, I've never thought about it like that, but maybe. Yeah.
The drink and drugs served a purpose because you were suppressing something that happened?
Yeah, but now I'd opened this wound, hadn't I? So, and it wasn't ready to heal yet. So doing anything like that was just going to make it, exasperate it, I suppose.
So from that point onwards, when you did touch a stimulant, you'd feel immediate anxiety?
Yeah, basically. Certainly like the come down of it, just like that, you know, that crippling feeling that you get, you know, where you're in bed and you've got like your T-Rex arms and you're curled in and you're just like thinking of everything that you've said and done and just going, oh, God, just die, I just want to die, you know? And it's horrible, yeah. Just didn't want to feel like that anymore.
Well, that is the blessing in disguise. When drinking and taking drugs is no longer fun, that is the time to stop.
It's a shame because even if I have a drink now, I feel a bit like that. So I don't really drink.
Don't enjoy drinking even now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm such a lightweight anyway. It's, you know, half a glass of wine and I'm drunk. So I tend to stay away.
So your 20s then? Got a job?
Yeah, so in my 20s... started working up in London. I'd met my husband at that point. He wasn't, you know, started dating for a few years and we got married. And things were relatively calm.
And did you tell him about your past?
Not initially. No, it's not a subject that we talk about too much, if I'm honest.
So after you told your mum about your past, you kind of went back to suppressing it again?
I felt like I'd outed it and that was enough. Yeah, I didn't really want to keep going over old ground, but a bit like I didn't want to give that man any more attention in my life, you know? It's like, I've done it, I've felt it, I've gone through the crap. I'm in a better place now. I don't want to keep thinking about it and bringing it up. And it's not the subject that you talk about to new people. Say, oh, hi, I'm Abby, I've been sexually abused.
But you know, when you're going through the whole process, you're falling in love and you're pillow talk, you open up. So was there a moment where you felt it a good time to tell him?
But you know, it was so long ago. I think there was that moment at one point when we first got together that I probably would have said it. But then once it was done, that was it. It wasn't like, let's keep talking about this.
No,
let's talk about it.
But he was aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause once you know someone's been through certain experiences, you do slightly tailor-make the way that you you deal with them, and you know there's going to be certain things that could trigger them on the telly, so you pay them attention because you love them, and certain scenarios you'll take the bass out of your voice just to let them know that you care and that you're with them. So that's why I asked, just to see if that was discussed.
Yeah, it wasn't. I didn't give it much time to talk about it. I kind of got it out off my chest, and that was it.
Okay, so you're married, you're working in London.
Yeah, working in London.
What was it you were doing in London?
Working for insurance, absolutely hating it.
Was that over the phone?
It was just in an office. I was training to be a broker at one point. I was shit at it. I'd get lost, no sense of direction at all. I was given a load of files, right, go to these people with your files and talking about insurance. I was so bad at it. I was really, how I got that job, I don't know. It took me 10 interviews in London before I even got a job up there. But yeah, I did. I was determined to make some money and turn my life around at this point. I'm young at this point. I've got that opportunity. My mum was working in London as well. A lot of my family work in insurance. And I was going to karate lessons, right, at the weekend. I actually got up to black belt, interestingly. But anyway, always going to work with injuries, black eyes, broken fingers, not a good look. People used to say, what's going on at home? And I was like, no, I'll go to, I teach karate. I was teaching kids karate as well at that point. Then I really hurt my back doing a kick. I had to have 6 weeks off work and I couldn't get out of bed. Like, the pain was incredible, really, really bad pain. I'd done something to one of the discs. The sciatica down one of my leg was just horrific. I've never felt pain like it. And eventually went back to work and my mum said, right, why don't you come to yoga with me? I'd never done yoga at this point. She went to a gym at lunchtime. She was like, just come with me. And I was like, okay, do you know what might help with my back? And I'm done with karate. I can't be having all these injuries. And went to yoga and I was like, oh, I love this. This is me. This is like, I just felt like I'd found my thing. And I had my mum with me. She loved it. It was just a really wholesome experience, Like me and my mum were bonding again. The past was the past now. We don't need to keep going over old grounds. This is our future. And we found something we loved doing together. We used to have a laugh, and we couldn't get in yoga poses. It was fun. And then I had my 2 girls. So I've got 3 kids. I had my 2 girls. I was on maternity leave and I was like, I don't want to go back to the city. I want to be a yoga teacher. This is it. I'm going to do it. And fully into the yoga world at this point. But my husband and I weren't getting on very well. I'd found this new confidence. I was finding myself again. We were arguing. I had 2 young daughters very close together and it broke us. It broke us to the point that we got divorced and we went our separate ways. And I just threw all my energy into my kids and my career. From qualifying as a yoga teacher, that year was insane. Like, I don't know how I got so lucky or what happens, but I was just booked up all the time. So I was asked to do shows. I was like the face of the Om Yoga show. I know you don't know what that is.
Have you know I'm big on yoga.
Are you?
No.
Oh. That's disappointing.
I did do it. I did do yoga once and
hated it.
Well, no, I enjoyed the whole atmosphere and vibe of it, but I don't know. Maybe if I'd done it now, I'd appreciate it more. But
it's not for everyone, and it depends what teacher you go to and what class you go to. And, it's a whole whirlpool that I won't go into. But anyway, at this point, I was just, I'd done my social media account. I'd built my website. I was full of myself at this point. I was getting, oh, we want you to model these clothes. I was on the front cover of magazines, and my yoga career felt at the time, it was just going like this. It was great. People knew who I was in the yoga industry, and I couldn't believe it. I'd gone from no confidence all my life to suddenly finding something that I was good at, and people were nice to me about it. And I'd made friends through it, through my yoga course. And it was like the life I'd always wanted. I was finally kind of at that point. And a production company got hold of me and they said, we want to make a DVD with you. So back in the day, DVDs. And I did a Yoga for Seniors DVD with my mum. And we filmed it and it still sells today. And it was like the UK best yoga DVD for older people, which is incredible. And I just love the fact that my mum is in other people's living rooms. You know, people are copying me and my mum doing yoga together. I just it's like her legacy lives on in that sense. So yeah, it was all pretty good. But then we get back to my love life. I was advised, illy perhaps, to go on first dates. Okay, the opportunity came across, and I thought, okay, I'll fill the forms in.
And just for anyone that doesn't know, what is first dates?
So first dates is like a reality TV show, Channel 4, where you're set up on a blind date and you're recorded.
In a restaurant?
In a restaurant, yeah.
And it's not staged?
Well, I'll get to that. I'll get to that. It's not staged, no. I mean, you've got your, a bit like this, you've got your mic set up, you've got the cameras dotted around the restaurant. They tell you where to be and what to do, so it's staged to a degree.
But the intention of the show is for people to...
It's meant to be like...
To find love.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, at one point I said I totally regretted going on the show, but actually now it's built up the character that I am now and it's part of my past. So actually I don't have any regrets. But anyway, I filled the forms out to go on the show. Never for 1 minute did I think they would get hold of me, and you go through a series of gruelling interviews with them, talking about your life and not as nerve-wracking as this, though, by the way, Liam.
Are you not relaxed now?
Settling into a normal level of anxiety, I'd say.
Oh, nice.
And a heightened level. So anyway, first dates. I couldn't wait. I was so excited. That little bit, although I am quite introvert, there's that little bit of me, that little extrovert inside waiting to come out. And I was like, this is my moment, and I'd had so many positive feedback from my yoga career, and I'd only known the positive world of social media at this point and putting myself out there. It was all been quite a positive path. And I was confident, probably a bit cocky, in fact, at this point. I'd gone past that point of lacking confidence to overconfident. And I'd gone on this date. And anyway, when you turn up, okay, to do this thing at first dates, you're all on a big table and they are filling you're filling your glass up with wine to the top. Drink that, drink that, drink that. So they're plying you with alcohol already, yeah? As soon as you drink a bit, they're topping it up, they're topping it up, they're topping it up. Now, I've already told you I get drunk on half a glass of wine, So you then sat down and you're waiting for the person to come out. You don't know who it is. You don't know who they've set you up with. You've got no idea. You can see the little cameras hidden around. You've got them. It's not natural. Yeah, you're made to feel like it's natural, but it's not natural. It's a weird setup. You're pissed already, right? And you're waiting for your date, and he turns up. Anyway, we didn't fancy each other. It was clear, we weren't each other's type. But I thought, I don't care about that. This is going to be. I'm going to enjoy myself. This is like a once in a lifetime thing. I'm going to have fun, right? And my sense of humour can be a bit on the dark side, and I can't remember the exact things I'd say, but I'd be like, oh God, I hope you get funnier the more you drink and things like that, just little things. But I was joking. All right, thank God you laughed. Jesus, right?
Poor bastard.
Oh, don't stop it, right? But then I'd kind of give him a little laugh as if to say, I'm only kidding, kind of thing, and he'd say something back, so it was banter. Because that's how I am, right? Especially after a glass of wine. Imagine you had someone filming you on a night out the whole time, okay? You've had a few drinks, a whole night, and then they just pick 10 minutes of that night and then they put it on TV. They can portray you however they want, can't they? So this date went on for about 3 or 4 hours and they found 10 minutes of this date to put on the TV, okay? So they can pick and choose exactly how that's going to look to the public. Anyway, I'm having a great time, bit of banter. What I didn't realise is that when I'm saying these jokes, right, when they edited it, they'd have me saying one of these kind of cutting jokes where he was laughing, giving it back. But then they'd cut to where they've interviewed him earlier in one of these interviews. Oh, women have just been so awful to me. I've had such a terrible heartache, and more or less crying on camera. And then they'd go back to me trying to eat my spaghetti. Worst choice I've ever done, ordering spaghetti on a first date. Schoolboy error, which was horrendous, right?
eating spaghetti on a first date when you're drunk.
On TV. Brilliant. So they'd cut back to me eating this spaghetti terribly and then saying something else to him and then back to him being all sad. And, you know, it was looking bad. But at the time, we were having a great time. You know, I didn't think that I'd had this spaghetti hanging out of my mouth. It was like for a split second that had happened. You know, the rest of the time I did eat quite sensibly, I'd like to add. You know, I don't eat like an animal. Maybe I do, and I've never realised it.
I ate quite sensibly.
Yeah. And at this point, you know, I was reasonably confident with how I looked in myself. I was never like, oh, I look amazing. I've never been that kind of person. I've always had my insecurities. But I felt like I looked all right and I was holding myself together, you know. When this came out, the cruel comments I got about my appearance were horrendous. And the way they edited it was my teeth was in every fucking shot, right? So, I mean, I don't know how they managed to get so many pictures of my mouth, like zoomed in, just so bad that, you know, I suddenly had some major insecurities after that. You know, I sent pictures of horses, their mouth, their teeth, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of horrendous pictures, and just being told how ugly I was, etc. And it was really horrible. But anyway, I'll get back to that in a minute. This date, we've been having banter. Anyway, I was just thinking, oh God, like this is going on a bit. Why are they still filming, right? Because they're obviously enjoying it. They realise they're going to use it. Because they don't use every date. They have loads of people on these first dates. They're all mic'd up and everything, but they don't use all of them. So you might have got to that point and they still don't use your date. But they're obviously interested in this one because of my teeth. And also the way
I'm looking at them now.
I've had them done since. So, yeah, anyway, this went on and on and on, this date. And we're like having a food fight at the end. It was proper banter. It was a good laugh. Like, I really enjoyed it. And I thought that was brilliant. That was so much fun. Loved it. Buzzing. There was a point where they said to me, right, go to the bathroom. We're going to film you in there. Go to the toilet. And they're like, oh, God, there's a window there. Would you, if that's not going very well, would you go out that window? Like, they're planting words in my head and I'm playing up to that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, God, I think I might just have to escape from the window. I can't stand it. It's just awful. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't. I've got to be honest. I shouldn't have said those things. But I had no idea that they were going to edit it in that way. That was going to make me look like the biggest bitch in history. I had no idea. My intentions were not like that. I wasn't out there to break this guy down. That's not me at all. I've never done anything like that in my life. I pick up a little spider if it's struggling. I'm not here to destroy someone's soul and break them down into tears. It wasn't like that. It was banter that had gone a bit far with some bad jokes. But anyway, I was really excited afterwards about it being shown. I was genuinely excited. I thought, this is brilliant, I can't wait. And everyone knew I'd done it. Of course, I told everyone. Everyone. All the people I've gone to school with, all the people that want to see you fail. They'd seen the rise of my yoga career. There were some people that were a little bit jealous about that. And they're waiting. There's those people out there that are watching you and they're waiting for you to fall. Well, they were all there, weren't they, when that was shown. And I remember I was watching it and I'd got to like 5 minutes in and I was like, oh, I know what's happening here. They've painted me to be like the biggest bitch in hell. They've picked me as the bad guy, but not just the bad guy, like the worst the show has ever seen, worst, And at that point I had a Twitter account, I don't anymore. And I went on there and I was like, oh my God, right, the messages started flooding in just continuously. Not one nice one. There was nothing nice. My name was trending on Twitter and not in a good way. And there were people from Towie on there saying what an irritating I am and put some Caniston on it. I mean, I can laugh. I can laugh because it's quite a good joke. And that was one of the tamer ones. And obviously a lot of pictures of horses and stuff like that. And I had Wayne Lineker, Gary Lineker's brother, on there saying, she's barred from my club in Ibiza. I've never been to Ibiza in my life. I don't have any intention of going to his club, but what the fuck? Like, these people just judging me just so quick because of how it's been edited, you know? It was a real shock. And going from my life being built up in a really positive way on social media with everything I was doing, can you imagine what a fall this was for me? Like, what a smack in the face, you know? To finally finding my confidence for the first time in my life and it being swiped away, not just swiped away, but really knocked down from this 10 minutes of airtime that I'd done. And, you know, no one preps you when you go on things like this. No one's kind of saying to you, like, be careful how you say this, be careful what you say here. I was naive. I'd just gone in there and I was having a laugh and I was playing up to the cameras, you know. I let that little extrovert come out for a moment, thinking it's okay, it's safe to do that. I mean, it's fine. These people are going to look after me, right? They're not here to do that to me. You have no idea. And they weren't. They were there to completely destroy me, and they did. You know, I had thousands of messages. I think one of them said, set her alight. You know, she deserves to die. You know, you don't deserve to have children. We're going to come find you. We're going to kill you. I had pictures of women tied up, being killed, being sent to me. When we find you, this is what we're going to do. And I had to get the police involved, and I had a panic alarm fitted. I mean, I was a single woman living on my own. I had my kids, obviously, shared with my ex-husband at the time. And it was horrendous. It just didn't stop. And I just couldn't believe that being on TV for such a small amount of time had destroyed me so much, like everything. You know, I couldn't bring myself to go and teach yoga because everyone had watched it, all my clients, everyone. And although these people knew me, they were still judging me because humans are weird, you know. When they see that everyone is saying this one thing, they're all sheep. They all jump in on it. Oh, yeah. You know, and I felt like everyone was looking at my teeth. It's something I'd never really been self-conscious of. I was quite accepting the way I looked. And then suddenly I was like, oh, my God, like, I look awful. You know, how can I put myself out there now? How can I be on, like, front covers of magazines and shows and, you know, and I look like this and I'm such a horrible person? You know, I began to believe it. It became that self-fulfilled prophecy. I'd been told it so many times, all these people, what an irritating fucking I am, what horrible, ugly, this, that. You know, it's bad enough. You know what it's like when you put a post on social media and you get, like, one comment that says something like that and you ignore all the good comments and you look at that one bad comment and you think, oh, it's got to me. I mean, it doesn't now, but initially when you put yourself out there, it gets you, doesn't it? So imagine having thousands of messages just abusing you, telling you should die. You begin to start believing it a little bit. You know, I had the sun at my door, the mirror. Right, how had I made such a horrendous impact? Like, how did I fuck it up that bad? Like, how? You know, it was a bad time.
Did anybody see the funny side of it?
There was probably more people that were supportive than what I'm saying, because I'm just remembering the bad stuff right now. You know, I've kind of blocked out the people that did support me. It just felt like this overwhelming amount of negative, horrible energy that I was receiving. And I was scared. I was genuinely scared. And I was just so pleased at the time my daughters were young enough not to understand what was going on.
Did any celebrities step up to the plate and defend you?
No.
Because to be abused so heavily on Twitter that you're actually trending that's a monumental level of abuse.
How is there no protection of something like that? You know, when people are signing up to doing things like this, you know, you realise this could happen to you, you know, if you come across in a bad light. Because perhaps if I'd had that little bit of knowledge and not been so naive, I would have been a little bit more careful with how I'd come across what I'd said, how stupid I was. But it was just like being filmed on a night out and having the worst 10 minutes of your night put on TV.
That's the good thing about these podcasts. I mean, especially anyone that comes on my platform, there's no editing to make anybody look bad. I like getting people on that have been mistreated by the mainstream or been exploited by these reality TV shows. We've had Kirk Norcross on earlier.
Yeah.
And he set the record straight. So, I mean, I know what these reality shows are like anyway. They want the car crash.
I mean, yeah, and I think of you know, like Towie and that, and I think, God, I was on TV for 10, 15 minutes tops. You know, these people are on it, you know, for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and I never, ever judge anyone on those shows. Now, I can't watch reality TV now because I just know how corrupt it is.
It's all engineered,
It's
isn't it?
all bollocks. It's all complete. They're out to destroy people because they have to have like a good guy and a bad guy. And they can switch that round whenever they want, you know. They can make anyone look like a bad guy, anyone look like a good guy. It just depends what story they're running at the time.
Did any other shows approach you after that?
I was asked to go on, do you know what it was, like a radio thing to do this podcast. I just declined everything. Anything that came in, I had no confidence at that point. I didn't believe how I'd come across would be in a positive light. I didn't, and I think a lot of my anxiety has stemmed from this. You know, I finally got my confidence at this point. I doubted every single thing that I said after that I was going to be judged. I became very paranoid about how I looked. Yeah, just really kind of analysing myself, got in my own head a little bit. You know, just picking myself apart continuously. And it took a long, long time to get through that. But whilst I was kind of getting through that, my mum was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So she had the cancer diagnosis just before I got divorced. But we were told she was going to be okay, you know, and that's when we did the DVD. And that was a really positive thing, you know, doing that with her. So, yeah, I'd kind of dealing with this whole first dates thing, trying to just forget it, just wanted it to go away, you know. And then my mum had this diagnosis. And that was, yeah, it was really, really rough time in my life at that point.
Was your dad still alive at this stage?
Yeah. Yeah, they were still together. Dad's still alive. You know, my mum being nearly 20 years younger than my dad, we never thought it'd be that way round.
No.
And she always used to talk about her life, like, sounds awful. She's like, when your dad's gone, right? When your dad's gone, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. She kind of planned her second life, and she'd saved up for that as well. Like, not in a morbid sense. It was my mum's sense of humour, you know. She was very much like you think of Ab Fab, she was like that, you know. She was a bit like Joanna Lumley in that sense. So, yeah, it was a bit of a shock to the system, and that really hit me really hard.
How did your mum take the news?
Bad. Yeah, she wasn't ready for that. She didn't want to go, you know. She had 2 granddaughters she wanted to see grow up. She wanted to get me in a good place as well. You know, she saw I was a broken person at this point. I was starting to regret all of my life decisions at this point. You know, how have I managed to mess up my life so badly? I felt like I'd been given these opportunities and I've now just destroyed them all. And I felt back to where I was when I was doing drugs and when I was homeless for a couple of nights. That's where I was, you know, a different set of reasons, but that's where I was mentally. And I just wanted everything back. Wanted everything back to normal. Wanted to go back to that bit of peace I had when I was working in London, when my husband and I were together. And actually my husband and I then got back together.
How did that rekindle you and your husband?
Well, we'd never really fallen out. You know, it was never like one of these really horrible, messy breakups. We were always very considerate of each other. There was no like big, nasty arguments. You know, we had the girls and he'd met someone and he was happy with them for a little while and he'd got his life together. And I think that helped that he had that other relationship. But that ended, that came to a natural end. And then we just started seeing each other a little bit with the kids, you know, handing the kids over. Then I'd come in for a little bit longer and then we'd talk about old times. You know, he knew my mum was really ill.
What did he say about the first dates experience?
Oh, yeah, that didn't go down well to begin with. Yeah, I got a lot of abuse.
Did he have a rant?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you know, I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do it out of respect for him. But I remember one very lonely, depressing night, I downloaded Tinder and I was swiping on it and I was like, that's my ex-husband on there in our house. And I was a bit pissed off. I thought, I'm doing it. I'd already, you know, I'd said no to them. I said, no, I'm not going to do it because I feel like it's a bit disrespectful. I wish maybe I should have just stuck with that. And then I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
So you've done it?
Not out of spite. I mean, I was on the cusp of doing it, but I thought, okay, he's ready to move on. Therefore, it's okay, I do this. I suppose that's what I'm trying to say.
Does your husband now bring up first dates if you ever argue?
There's some things we just don't talk about, and that's one of them.
That's the unwritten rule.
Yeah.
Okay, so you rekindle with your husband and your mum is really
unwell.
Really ill, yeah.
Yeah, so then I fall pregnant with my third child. So I'm pregnant, my mum knows, and she knows it's going to be a boy. She never had a grandson, which kept me, that sounds sad that I was pregnant, my mum was dying, but actually it was what kept me going, this life. It helped me get through it. Yeah, and I used to go and see her in the hospice every day, get up at 7 o'clock, waddle up the stairs, my big bump. And I just remember the hardest thing I've ever done, I'm going to try and say this without crying as well, was when my mum, she was holding on, and I don't know why, she didn't want to let go, sorry. And I had to tell her it was time. And that was the hardest thing I've had to do, is tell her, you can die now, But I knew she was ready to go and she was suffering. And I don't know what she was holding on for. But I remember, she was very much like in a drug-induced coma at this point, but she still just went, okay. And that night she died. And then, But I had my little boy a couple of months after that. And it was just the most amazing gift that I could have ever had to help me get through that grieving. It's just a weird mixture of this horrendous grieving, because I didn't know what grieving was. I'd gone through my granddad dying, and that was like almost a pleasant experience, to then my mum dying, the closest person in my whole life, that one person that loves you unconditionally. She's not here anymore. And that shock of, who's going to love me unconditionally? Who's going to love me for all my faults and everything? It makes you feel very vulnerable when you lose someone like that you love that much, and someone I looked up to so much as well. But yeah, so that just leaves my dad now. And my dad, I've got this funny relationship with my dad, and he's not acting quite normal. And I'm thinking, there's something wrong here. He couldn't count money properly. He's forgetting things. I think, he needs to go to the doctors, and he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So I was like, okay, I can deal with this. It's fine. I can deal with this. And he's going through an awful lot. He's lost my mum. He's been with her for 45 years. He's now on his own in this big house. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He's a retired doctor. He's lost. My mum was everything to him. My mum laid out his clothes in the morning. He didn't make any decisions for himself. My mum did everything, made him a cup of tea. He didn't really have to do anything other than move from the bed to the chair and watch TV and go back to bed again. My mum was doing everything. And he just suddenly lost this powerful woman in his life. So I kind of had to really step up with my dad, that relationship. But he then decided he'd start going to a bridge club. And I was like, brilliant. This is great. You're trying to build your life. It was very quick after my mum died. But he had Alzheimer's. It was a couple of weeks after my mum died. So I'm going to bridge club. I was like, okay, bit nervous about your driving, but go on, you go for it. Couple of weeks after that, so we're talking a month after my mum has died, right? He says to me, I'm with a new person now. I was like, okay, what do you mean? I've met someone. Initially, I thought I'm going to go mad, but I thought, do you know what? He's an old man. If this makes him happy, right, I'm just going to support it, because I don't know how long he's got left. He's not very well. Let's just see where this goes. So I went, okay, I'll come and meet her. And I turn up at my house, the house I've grown up in, my mum and dad's house. And she opens the door, and she's wearing my mum's jewellery and her slippers. Like a month after my mum has gone. So I haven't even gone through my mum's stuff yet, because I can't, because it's too painful. And I've, at this point, got a new baby, So obviously alarm bells are going at this point. I'm thinking, right, what is going on here? And then over the course of the next 6 weeks, she puts cameras up around the house. She changes the locks. My dad won't pick up the phone. Then he leaves like these really distressing messages to me and my brother. You know, I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to see you anymore. I'm not going to see you anymore. Like, what is going on? He then tries to take his own life in the garage with the car, trying to poison himself. And the neighbours found him. So at this point, we're trying to get this woman out of his life, but we can't prove what she's doing. It's clear that she's after his money. You know, she then managed to get my dad to marry her, right? All secretly. And we didn't know this till a little bit later on.
In what space of time?
A couple of months. So that meant that when my dad passes, everything is left to this woman. Yeah. I then managed to see my dad a couple of times, and he had some nasty old scratches up his arm. You know, he's an old man. He injures easily. He's in a bad way. He's hunched over. He's frail. You know, I'm looking at him, but I can't see my dad anymore. So, do you know what I did? And it just sounds like I make some of this shit up, and I promise you I'm not. But I bought a listening device. It looks like a plug, right? And I put it in the house that one time that I managed to get in. I plugged it in so I could record what that woman is doing. Okay, because I'd spoken to the police time and time again, and they did nothing. Oh, you know, prove it. It's just hearsay, right? I knew she was abusing him. I knew she was taking his money. I'd spoken to the banks. And anyway, left that listening device in there for a week. Retrieved it. My brother retrieved it, actually. And I listened to it. And I was just sick. I just couldn't stop throwing up. That woman, she should throw my dad so you could hear it all. You couldn't visually see it. You could just hear it all. You could hear her put my dad's dinner down and then throwing it on the floor and then saying, "Pick it up, you animal," and things like that. This is a frail old man with Alzheimer's that's trying to pick his dinner up off the floor in his own house. You know, while she's wearing all my mum's stuff, my mum's jewellery, right? She's then hitting him with a saucepan. You can hear him being crying, and he's being hit and hit and hit. And then she starts on him at 4 o'clock in the morning. It goes on. So she wakes him up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she's just going, your wife died because of you, because you're a bad doctor. She wouldn't have died of cancer unless, if you'd given her better treatment. Your kids don't love you. And it was just continuous for hours and hours and hours and hours of just him being broken down. You could hear him crying. It was just horrific. And eventually, as soon as I got that listening device out and I heard this, I mean, it goes on, I won't go on about it. I told the police, they heard it, and they went in and arrested her and dragged her out. And I moved in, and I couldn't leave him after that. The thought of leaving him with any stranger at all ever again. I mean, he hated me. He didn't want me in. He couldn't understand because he'd been brainwashed thinking I was some kind of evil, horrible daughter. And I had to try and get through that barrier with him, you know, that I'm here to help you, Dad. You know, it's me, it's your daughter, you know, and he hadn't even accepted my mum had gone. He's really ill at this point. So we all move in.
Did she go to jail?
No.
Wow.
She didn't.
And was she younger?
Yep.
How much?
Probably about 15 years.
Oh, so she's fully compos mentis and knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
And did you find out what her background was and how they met?
Bridge club. That's where he met her, at Bridge club. But what's weird was on this listening device, when you'd hear her talking, she would be talking to herself and just being like saying like burn in hell, and like talking about hell and fire and death. And, you know, I do truly believe that most people are good people somewhere. You know, they might have had horrible upbringings, whatever, and they've made bad choices and they come out in strange ways and they commit crimes. But most people aren't pure evil people. You don't meet those evil souls. Now, this was an evil person, and it was horrendous meeting someone like that. You know, it's just to do that to a frail old man.
Did you manage to see her face to face before she was arrested?
Yeah. Yeah, she's a scary, scary eyes.
Did you say anything to her?
No, because I had to play the game because I needed to catch her. So it was very like tactical what I was doing.
That's great restraint.
Yeah, it was very, very difficult. When she got arrested, my mum had a gold necklace that my dad had bought her when she was much younger, and she took it off and threw it. And I managed to kind of save all my mum's stuff. You know, that's not just my inheritance, that's my children's inheritance, that's my mum's, you know, personal possessions. That's all I had left of my mum, you know?
Was you angry with your dad, or did you think he's losing his mind and he's being influenced?
Oh, God, I was angry with him. But, I wasn't angry with it. I didn't say, I wasn't verbal about that. I felt angry at the time that he'd let this woman into his life, but it's not his fault. No, you know, when I think back on it, he was an ill man. But yeah, so he was then bedridden. I still had my little baby, and I remember I was like trying to breastfeed my baby, and I was feeding my dad porridge. And I just thought, this is really messed up. Like, what is going on here? And the carers in and out. And
But you got the whole family with you now as well.
yeah, we were back as a unit, and I needed that support, 100%. But yeah, and I remember just thinking, right, because they said to me, you sure you want to be with him when he dies? You know, that's a question they ask when you're caring for someone. And you've never been faced with this question before, you know, being with someone when they die. And I was like, yeah, I've got to do it for him. I've got to do it for him. But one thing he'd never done, he'd never ever told me he loved me, ever, in my whole life. And I was like, right, this is the time, right? And it was a bit of a joke in the end, because I used to say to him in the morning, right, Dad, right, you're going to tell me today, you're going to tell me you love me. And he'd just laugh. And he still wouldn't say it, but he'd just like laugh. And it was just like this kind of like, I know you do. You don't have to say it, it's fine. But every day I'd go, Dad, what about today? What about today? And he'll go, no.
Did he ever tell you?
He never told me. But I remember like a week before he died, like I was just like holding his hand, and he looked at me. It looked at me like a way that I'd never seen him look at me, as if to say like, thank you and I love you. And I just felt it. He didn't need to say it. And that was enough.
Far more powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Words are just
words. You know, anyone can say it, can't they?
I've had people tell me they love me and they've acted very differently.
Really?
My
That's
father.
nasty. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, no. Arsehole.
He was a bad man.
Yeah, evil. That's what I mean.
Fucking was evil.
Evil bastards. And I think some people go through life never meeting an evil soul. And you don't know what it's like to meet someone who's truly, truly evil. It's horrendous. You know, it changes you when you meet someone like that, because you can never forget them. You can never forget them.
So when you met that woman,
Yeah.
did you feel the evil?
God, yeah. Yeah, it was like, it's like being in the presence of someone who's not human, because they're not feeling normal human emotions. This is someone who's, I don't know what's gone on in her life to make her the way she is, but I don't give a shit. I don't care what's happened to you. You don't act like that. You know, nothing in your past can give you excuses for that kind of behaviour. You know, to treat an old, vulnerable person like that. It has to be from something evil. It can't be from, you know, what's happened to you in the past.
Did you ever see her after she was arrested?
No.
And what was the police's excuse for not charging her?
So they had to go through, just the police, so they had to write up all the notes of the audio, which, you know, it took them weeks and weeks. And my dad's really ill at this point, you know. We managed to somehow get the will reversed and everything, so it was back to how it should be with me and my brother when my dad passed. So that felt comforting, that it wasn't going to go to this evil bitch, basically. They said he wasn't in a fit state to stand trial, right? And then my dad died, and they said that there's no case. So she still has my dad's pension, you know, every month.
So you weren't able to change the will?
You can change the will, but it doesn't stop the pension, because they were married and he died. His pension, you know, he's a GP, he had a good pension, goes straight to her. But, you know, I have to let that go. I can't let things like that eat me up, you know. It was just a horrendous thing to have to deal with straight after my mum had died. I hadn't had a chance to grieve for my mum when my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and then I was having to deal with this awful, evil presence that had turned up in our lives, trying to protect my dad from her. being with my dad when he died, and then I could finally grieve for both my parents. It was only at that point. But there was points where I would wake up in the middle of the night in sweats, thinking I hadn't done enough for my dad. Like I'd left it, because where I was caring for him, it's a big responsibility, but I'd have these horrible nightmares where I'd left him outside in the rain or something on his hospital bed, and I hadn't cared for him enough, and I'd just wake up night after night, like these night terrors of just that I hadn't done enough to help him and protect him, that I'd let this woman do what she'd done to him. But I can see now that it's not my fault. But it was just a way of processing what had happened.
You also saved him from that woman.
Yeah, 100% she would have killed him. And there was a massive knife in the airing cupboard that we found. She was waiting. She was trying to either rile him enough for him to kind of lash out so she could then say it was self-defence, or she was trying to get him to kill himself, which is why he was found in the garage.
Do you ever picture yourself meeting her again and what you'd say?
I did. I used to drive near where she used to live hoping to see her, but I didn't really know what I was going to do with that. I mean, I'm not a volatile person. I'm not aggressive at all. I'm more of I sit and calculate, really. I don't know what I would do with it, because I could look at her in the eye and go, you've done this. But when you're talking to someone who is evil, that means nothing to them. It means nothing. All you're doing is fueling their ego of that pride that what they've done. You're just reinforcing that psychosis in them. So the best thing that you can do is actually just step out of their life completely.
Don't give them any more oxygen.
Yeah, don't fuel it anymore. Don't fuel the fire. Let it be. Let it be. Move on, because all you're going to do is damage yourself. What good is it going to do me confronting her? She's never going to go, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry what I've done, because that's not the nature that you're dealing with. You're not dealing with someone who has any empathy. There's no point. There's no point. You have to just ignore them, let them be, move on with your life, because it will just taint you forever.
Do you know if she's moved on to someone else?
I don't know, but I do know that her previous 2 husbands died. I'm just going to leave that there.
Can we mention her name?
I'd rather not. I'll tell you after the podcast.
Okay. Be nice to shine a light on this individual, wouldn't it?
Mm.
Okay, so you're dealing with the death of your dad. You've had this woman arrested. The police are now dealing with it. The police didn't charge, or the CPS decided not to charge her for whatever reason. I think that's what we were discussing. Why the CPS wouldn't charge her.
Oh, it was horrible getting that phone call saying they weren't going to try. And I appealed it. I so wanted her to go down for what she'd done. And that killed me for a long time, that feeling that she's walking around doing what she's done and she's got away with it. There's someone else in my life, an evil person in my life that has got away with it. That's what it felt like.
Ah, I see. Okay. So that brought back old memories.
Yeah.
And emotions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like that whole feeling of injustice,
And did that hinder your grieving process?
Yeah, it did. It did, because I was dealing with so much with her and the police and the CPS. I was like letters to solicitors. This was consuming. My phone used to ring on average 80 times a day. Yeah, it was just so stressful. I didn't have time to grieve at that point. There was no space for grieving. It was like, right, this is what I've got to do. I've got to get through it. And it was just getting through that time, just thinking, I've had a bad run of events here. Surely my time is to come soon. And I just kept holding on to that hope that things will start turning around.
And did things start turning around?
Yeah, so once my dad had passed and I'd kind of let go of all that negativity in my life and things started calming down, and I started putting my focus back onto, my job again. I hadn't really worked much at this point. My little boy was a little bit older now. Then COVID hit. My job kind of took back seat again. But then I kind of reinvented the wheel online, and that's when I could put myself back out onto social media. And I was like, right, the only real way to build my business is online. I'm going to have to put myself back out there. And I was nervous about doing that after the first dates thing, worried about being judged by us. I'm older now as well. People are going to pick up on that. And I just kind of made this deal with myself that I'm just going to be myself. That's it. And if no one likes it, I can cope with that because I've gone through hell and back. So I care less. You know, I still care. I do believe that it's like a natural human response to care what people think. And I do still care what people think, but not as much. You know, I don't hold on to those negative comments. People can say shit about my teeth or how I look, and it's funny. It's funny. I turn it into humour and it's funny. And I don't really get those comments as much anymore. And I think I've created a more positive, happier environment online as well, you know, where I'm not this person that's doing like these perfect yoga poses that I was doing before. I was portraying a much different image of myself, and one that I could never have held on to for the rest of my life either, because it's not real. It wasn't real, but now I can be myself. It feels much more sustainable and, yeah, just a happier place. I just feel in a happier place.
Before I come back to your business, which is how I want to end the interview, because it's that'll be ending on a real nice high.
Yeah.
But anxiety, I know that you've struggled to even come here today because you struggle to leave the house at times because your anxiety gets that bad. I understand anxiety, you get anxious about being anxious, and then all of a sudden you are anxious, and then you can't talk about being anxious because you're anxious. So
I know.
This is going to be tough, I imagine.
Do you know what? I think the best thing you can do if you've got crippling anxiety, which I honestly do have crippling anxiety on days, it's not the same every day. You have to just admit that that's the problem. And like, for example, this kind of thing, you know, horrendous for me. It's like my biggest fear, which is why I had to do it. I had to do this. I had to go head on with my fear. I haven't done this kind of thing for a very long time. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to say how I'm going to be feeling. I'm going to say that I feel anxious. And talking about the symptoms of anxiety, and it helps because what anxious people do when they're anxious, they sweat, they'll get a rash, they'll tremble, their words won't come out right. And you think you've got to be this confident person, but you're not. And all these symptoms come out and it shows that vulnerability. But if you just put it all on the table and you say, this is how I'm going to feel, I might get sweaty, I might get a rash, I might stumble on my words, I might just freeze. Once you've laid it all out, actually, you're like, oh, okay, actually, I'm all right. It's okay. I've said how it's going to be. That might happen. And it feels a bit better once you've kind of let it out. And I think if people just normalise those weird little symptoms of anxiety that people get, then people care less, because it's so hard if you're trying to be this really confident person, but all these telltale signs of that vulnerability are coming through. You know, just lay it out, just be honest with how you're feeling, and I think it helps. Don't try and be something you're not. If you're anxious, admit it. Just say I'm anxious. And it helps. It helps big time.
See, for me, like I've had anxiety years and years ago. It was drug-induced, but I mean, it was hard, fast, deep and harrowing. And I wrestled with it for years. And for whatever reason, internally, I've got a good understanding with it. So if I know someone's anxious, I behave very differently for them.
Yeah, because you have that empathy towards it.
I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
No.
And you telling me that you're anxious has then steered my way of engaging with you, because you haven't given away the obvious telltale signs. You really haven't.
Really?
No.
Amazing. I've still got it.
You've done really well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I wouldn't, unless you'd have told me.
I mean, I'm calmer now. Now we're at the ends of, you know, talking. But, you know, there's some massive like bombshells that I've dropped that people don't know about me. So for someone who's anxious to then be revealing things about themselves that they've not really spoken to anyone about, some of the things I said to you, I don't think I've said to anyone, you know, that is going to be a massive fuel for anxiety. But
Do you feel better for it?
I feel really proud of myself that I've done it, and I'm really grateful to you for giving me this opportunity. I said most people would just go to therapy, but I've chosen, you know, a podcast. But yeah, I think it has had that kind of therapeutic effect, and I'm hoping to feel a little bit lighter, and I think I feel it already.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of podcasts, they're full of negativity, but if we can pull that one positive from it that overshadows the rest, that's job done.
Exactly. That's it. And, you know, and I didn't want my story to be like, oh, poor me, oh, what a victim. It wasn't about that. It was just about sharing my story. And everyone has got their story to tell. You know, everyone. You know, if you spend enough time talking to one person, they'll tell you things that just blow your mind. You know, I've just been lucky enough that I've been able to share mine, but everyone has got their story to tell. And I think people have had shit in their lives, you know, and I think people need to talk about some of that childhood trauma a little bit more to get them through their adult life.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, now tell me what you're doing currently, your business, your online presence, your platform. The good stuff.
The good stuff, yeah. So basically most of my living is made online now. I've built up kind of two separate audiences, really. I've got like my Facebook audience, which is all very educational, and that's my more serious side, you know, my tutorials and everything like that. And then Instagram's more my comedy side, my geeky side, like who I actually am, basically.
It's tongue-in-cheek, but it's still educational though, isn't it?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes, you know, I still manage to piss people off on there. It's amazing. Like the yoga community, the wellness community, it's a very delicate community. And there's a lot of people that are completely up their own arse, you know, and I hate that because it's so unapproachable to so many people. When you say, I'm a yoga teacher, I instantly feel like I've got to then make people feel like I'm approachable because the industry isn't approachable. There's so many rules of what you should eat, how you should do yoga, what you should wear, you know, how you should come across. And it's just, a lot of it is bullshit because it's meant to be about making you feel better. I don't care what my students eat, what they wear, how they come across, whether they go to the gym or not. It's totally up to them. I just want them to feel better after they've been to my class or watched one of my videos. And the way I do that is through humour, taking the piss out of myself, getting them to take the piss out of themselves, you know, just lightening up the place a little bit, bringing some reality into it.
You've learned that laughter's the best medicine, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah.
And so people will go on to it. So where can people find you? So what's your Instagram and Facebook tag?
Abi Mills Yoga.
On both?
Yeah, YouTube, Facebook and Instagram.
All the same?
Yeah.
And the future, what does that hold?
Just want to carry on building my business, my online presence, more and more like online classes, connecting with more like-minded people, doing more things like this, pushing myself out of my comfort zone, encouraging other people to come outside their comfort zone. I just want people to feel better about themselves. And by doing that, it makes me feel better about myself as well.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Well, this has made me feel better.
Oh, good.
I'm glad
You're
you come.
Your usual guest.
You'll be surprised. But the thing is, I'm interested in everybody. I'm interested in everybody. I started the podcast essentially to learn. And then the first few podcasts, I was overexcited and I thought I'll get my own content out of these podcasts as well. Doesn't work. Stick to why I started it. It's to sit back, listen, learn, delve in a little bit. I'm naturally intrigued anyway. And I want to feel inspired by other people because the world doesn't revolve around me. And today you've done exactly that.
Oh,
and thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, my cold, clammy hand.